Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Down the Tee Tennis Podcast. We're back today to preview and make our predictions for the men's singles draw of the 2022 French Open. Very much looking forward to this. It's promises to be a fantastic tournament on the men's side. Just first of all, Kieran, how much are you looking forward to this tournament? The men's singles event at Roland Garros, a highly anticipated one, given, as we talked about in the previous podcast, how many potential contenders there are for the title and how close it is between them.
Yeah, it feels like a really unique year for Roland Garros. I mean, on both sides, because although Iga Swiatek, we're mainly on this podcast previewing the men's, we're bringing the women's as a separate podcast, aren't we? But, just on both sides, I don't think there's a clear winner. In the women's, there's a clear favourite in Swiatek, but she's still only got one slam title to her name, so you can't really say that she's nailed on to win. And on the men's side, it's just, this is the least certain I've been going into a Roland Garros in a long, long time. There's multiple names that can win it. With the way, as we'll get into, the top half of the draw has fallen. It feels like whoever comes through that top half of the draw is going to be drained compared to whoever comes through this bottom half of the draw. So, there could even be a massive shock here for all we know. So really, really excited for it. It's a bit of a stinger for me that Nadal's got such a cloud over him with the injury problems. As much as a fully fit Nadal makes a French Open a bit more of a foregone conclusion, I'd rather see Nadal at his best at this tournament, and I hope that the injury doesn't hold him back too much and we can get blessed with great matches all the way through, because this one really should be a good one.
Absolutely. Yeah, very much looking forward to this. So before we do get into it, I thought I'd definitely give a mention to Feliciano Lopez, whose record streak of 79 consecutive Grand Slam events that he's appeared in has ended ahead of this tournament. He did lose in the qualifying draw, so unfortunately he hasn't been able to continue that, but still an absolutely unbelievable streak, which might never be broken. I mean, 79 events in a row without, just shows the incredible longevity the man's had. I think that streak started in 2002. I think I remember seeing some. I mean, that's going to really take some beating. That he's managed to continue showing up at every major into his late 30s. So yeah, fantastic achievement for him. But we'll get into the draw and start with the first section and go through predicting who we think's gonna advance in this tournament. As we said, so many contenders. You mentioned Nadal going for a 22nd Grand Slam, which would be extending his record, in the 14th Roland Garros. Djokovic going for a 21st to equal Nadal, which would be his third Roland Garros title. That would make him the first player to ever win all 4 Grand Slam titles twice each. And now with the other main contenders, Carlos Alcaraz, Stefanos Tsitsipas, and Alexander Zverev, Casper Ruud, if you want to throw them in there, all going for the first Grand Slam title. So we'll start with this top quarter here. The men's draw. Novak Djokovic's quarter, if you like, in section 1, the world number 1, the top seed. Kieran, just give us your thoughts on this quarter and talk us through who you see is going to come through that first quarterfinal matchup.
Yeah, I think it may not be a complete cakewalk, but you can't really see anything other than Djokovic coming through that. I mean, there is a few dangerous players in there. Federico Coria, possible second round opponent, and he's a very good clay court player, just as his brother was before him. Brooksby, we know, has caused problems for Djokovic in the past, but Djokovic still managed to come through at the US Open, wasn't it, last year? And then Grigor Dimitrov, if he finds his form, capable of springing a surprise. Borna Koric back to fitness after some time out, but a decent clay court player. And even as far down as Diego Schwartzman, but I don't feel like we've seen the best of Schwartzman very often for the last year. So I'd massively back Djokovic to come through that quarter into the quarterfinal.
Yeah, absolutely in agreement with this one. I think you can't see anything other than Djokovic coming through this section. As you mentioned, yeah, some decent players in there, but no one I could see upsetting them in the early rounds of a slam. I'll give a mention to Alex Molchan there as a possible second round one, as you mentioned, playing Coria. That would be a good first round match. Both those players very good on clay. Molchan is having another good run at an ATP 250 event this week in Lyon. He's reached the finals of Marrakesh earlier in the year and Belgrade last year, and working with Marian Vida incidentally. So that could be interesting. Djokovic's former coach, if he does come up against Molchan there. But yeah, I definitely think Djokovic to come through that quarter. Schwartzman, probably the most likely fourth round opponent. Dimitrov has been in some decent form, especially at Monte Carlo, but I think probably, yeah, you look at Djokovic to beat Schwartzman in the fourth round there. So moving into the second section of the first quarter, we've got Rafael Nadal, the top seed in this one, Felix Auger-Aliassime in there as well as the ninth seed. Obviously, a lot of concern over Nadal's foot injury that we saw in Rome, but he has been practicing. Looks to be in better shape from what we're seeing and from what he's talked in the press today. How do you see this one playing out, Kieran?
Yeah, well, I think you should be able to manage the first couple of rounds fairly easily. Wawrinka as a possible second round opponent, but as we saw in Rome, really, against Djokovic, he wasn't really to challenge at that level just yet. And even if Nadal struggles with his fitness a bit, the way he hits the ball, the top spins that he's getting off a racket, they're still among the best in the game. So I do think he will be able to get through that easily enough. And another factor in slams is a bit more rest period between matches as well. So hopefully that'll help him out. So I do see him coming through this. It is, Fabio Fognini can be a dangerous player on his days, on clay as well. Riley Opelka, a possible opponent of I'd probably see Felix Auger-Aliassime coming through into a fourth round ahead of him. Opelka gets some good results on clay actually for such a big man who plays more behind his serve that you associate a bit more with grass. He does actually have a decent clay court record. But I do back Felix to have a big breakthrough on the clay at the French Open this year. He hasn't had great results here in the past, but he has had a decent clay court season this year. So I think back that up with a good French Open, make a big breakthrough, and I'd probably see him falling to Nadal in the end. I feel confident that Nadal will at least manage to get through the first few rounds into that quarterfinal with Djokovic.
Yeah, I think so too, and I would agree. I think it would most likely be that last 16 matchup against Felix Auger-Aliassime. And I agree. I think Nadal can definitely play his way into the draw. I really don't think there's any players there capable of beating him at Roland Garros. As you mentioned, Wawrinka, is great to see him back, but I don't think he's quite at the level yet where he's going to be contented to knock out a top seed in best of five. And Fognini, 3 wins against Nadal on clay. I think he's definitely given Nadal some issues before, but I would say not Roland Garros. And Van der Zandschulp in great form. He's having a really good season, backing up his breakthrough last year at the US Open. He's had some good results on the clay, but again, I think Nadal will be fine to get through that. And Auger-Aliassime, I think that's a pretty good little section for him to come through. Probably Krajinovic or Opelka, the winner of that first round match, could be the toughest opponent from in the third round. But I think he'll build on the solid quarterfinal runs he's had at the last 3 clay court events, and then probably lose to Nadal, as we said. So we'll move on into the second quarter. The third section, Alexander Zverev, the top seed here, number 3, and Taylor Fritz, the second highest seed. Let's talk us through this one, Kieran. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, well, I don't see it as easy as Alexander Zverev coming through, to be honest. I mean, Sebastian Baez, a possible second round opponent. Baez, he's got a few top 10 wins to his name, and those wins have tended to be on clay, I believe. 2 ATP finals on clay, a title, a junior French Open final on clay. He has got quality on this surface, and if Zverev gets through that match, which I probably see him getting through it, I see it being a difficult match and one that may take a bit out of him. So then to possibly come up against Davidovich Fokina in the third round, another good clay court player, I'd actually say Zverev's got a difficult little section to navigate there. And I'm going to go a bit outside the box, although I don't really think it's that much outside the box, and back Davidovich Fokina to come into the fourth round against Fritz. And then against Fritz, he's decent on clay, can play a bit on clay. He's been in the French Open third round before, but I don't think he's a great clay court player. And I'd probably back Davidovich Fokina to come through that as well. So I'm predicting ADF into the quarterfinal of Roland Garros.
It's an interesting one. Yeah, that's a big call, but definitely, I mean, he made the quarterfinals last year, final in Monte Carlo this year, so he's definitely got the pedigree on clay, and I agree. It's not an easy section for Zverev. Definitely Baez could be a tough one again, as you mentioned, the finals on clay, and he had another good run this week in Lyon. So again, that could be a tricky second round, but Davidovich Fokina definitely dangerous. I agree that could be a tough match. I've just gone with Zverev to survive that and get through the fourth round. But yeah, it could be a tricky one. Definitely. Davidovich Fokina beating Ruud last year in the third round at Roland Garros. So that's going to be an interesting one. I do think that match could happen. And I would agree that Fritz is the most likely player to get through the fourth round on the other side. Like you say, I think clay's is definitely his worst surface, but he did have a decent run in Monte Carlo. I think we could see, yeah, I don't think there's too many real threats in that section. If he does play, he's somewhere near his best tennis. Isn't as capable even on clay, but he hasn't had the greatest run lately. So I'd say, yeah, I'm going to go Zverev to beat Fritz in the fourth round there. So moving on to the fourth section, the bottom half of this quarter, and the final one in the top half, we've got Carlos Alcaraz, who like Djokovic and Nadal, and Zverev has landed in the top half. It really is a stacked top half there with those arguably 4 of the 5 favourites, you'd say, for the title. And Cam Norrie, the 10th seed, also in there, who's actually made it through the final in Lyon as we're recording this week. So what do you make of this fourth section, and who do you see coming through?
I don't think it's quite a cakewalk for Carlos Alcaraz, but you can't look beyond him in the form that he's in, the titles that he's picked up. I did see I often mention little arguments I see on social media on this podcast. I think they're kind of way on me, and I did see someone, I'm going to call them an idiot, argue against Alcaraz's consistency, and I'm like, yeah, okay, if we take in his whole career, he's probably been inconsistent at senior level, but he's been at senior level for a couple of years, and he's been, 17 to 19 years old. It's this year, if you just take a snapshot of this year, he's been ridiculously consistent for a player his age, and on clay as well, especially. I don't know what's his best surface between clay and hard, because he's very good on both, but I'd probably just lean towards clay right now. Cam Norrie's in there though, like you say, he's had a good week this week, and he's a problem for anybody just because his consistency of hitting, the amount of times he'll hit the ball back over net, it'll make you work hard for your wins. So it could be a dangerous threat in the fourth round. I do think I see him coming through to the fourth round, but I'd have Alcaraz to still get through it. Other honourable mentions in there: Dominic Thiem. We know his pedigree at Roland Garros, but it just doesn't look like it's going to fall for him quite yet. He still needs more time. I don't think he's been given an easy first round as well. I think he might be looking even longer for that first win since his return from injury, because Hugo Dein is actually a fairly decent clay court player, so that's going to be a struggle. Kokkinakis as well, I think he's had some decent results this last week, and we know he's a dangerous player. He'll hit big, he'll attack you. So like I say, not a cakewalk for Carlos, but you've got to look at his results this year and pick him as the favourite from that section.
Yeah, I would agree. Not a cakewalk, and also, I think it's pretty crazy. Any questions about his consistency? I mean, as you rightly said there, I mean, I think this is only going to be his 6th senior Grand Slam tournament that he's playing. So I mean, I don't see how you can question that. And yeah. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I'm just going to say there's not strong questions about his consistency. I've just seen one idiot on Twitter way on my mind, but I shouldn't really bring just one opinion, an opinion I've seen from just one person onto a podcast, because it's not like it's a popular opinion.
Of course, it's entertaining though. And I think it's a really good draw from him. And as you said, that it really is an interesting one between clay and hard course. What's his best surface? I would probably agree. I would just say clay at the moment, but very, very strong on both. And I think it's a pretty good draw. First 2 rounds, I think I can't see any issues there. Then Korda in the 3rd round could be an interesting one. Korda did beat him in Monte Carlo, although Alcaraz was coming off the back of his Miami title. Hadn't trained much on clay apparently before that one, but Korda definitely a dangerous opponent. Has made the last 16 at the French Open before, so that's an interesting one. But I still can't see him beating Alcaraz here and over best of 5. And on the other section, yeah, definitely some interesting players in there. Norrie, as we say, having a really another good run this week. Might be fatigue could be a question mark, but he's extremely fit. I think prides himself on being one of the toughest competitors and the fittest players out there. So I'd expect him still to get through a couple of rounds. And I think Khachanov could be the other player who's a factor in that mini section. Hasn't been in the greatest form, but tends to play decent tennis on clay. He has made the quarterfinals here before, so tough one between those two. I might just give Khachanov the edge, being a bit fresher. And as you say, Team, it'd be great to see if Team can get a win and maybe plays win at the tournament, but that's not necessarily a straightforward match when he is short of wins and confidence. So I'll have Alcaraz to beat Khachanov in the fourth round. So we'll finish off the top half. So moving into the bottom half, section 5 of this, the top section of this third quarter, you've got Casper Ruud, the highest seed here, number 8, and Hubert Hurkacz, the 12th seed. An interesting one. You have to say it's a good opportunity for Ruud, but who do you see coming through?
Yeah, I've gone with Ruud, even though he hasn't really shown his top potential on clay this year. I still think he's the best player on this surface in there, and probably the best player at the moment in there. I mean, Hubert Hurkacz also one of the top players in there, but clay's far from his best surface. I don't feel he's very consistent on it. He can pick up wins here and there, but I don't think he's as much of a prospect as he is on grass or hard courts. Lorenzo Sonego's not a bad player and not a bad clay court player, but I feel a lot of the players in this section, like Rusevori, Hugo Humbert, possible second round opponents, play the best tennis on hard courts, really. I think Tsonga's actually a dangerous first round because Tsonga will be keen to go out on a high, and he's still been losing, but he's looked a little bit more solid in recent matches, like he could maybe spring a surprise at the French Open and take a win or two, but he's, against Casper Ruud in the first round, you've still got to massively back Ruud. Tier 4 on the other side of his section, he's not bad on clay, actually. David Goffin, we know his pedigree, but he doesn't win as consistently nowadays as he used to. And Cecchinato as well, very much a clay court specialist. All his best results have been on clay. He's been as far as, is it the quarterfinals at Roland Garros?
Tiafoe, I don't think he's...
No, Cecchinato.
Checking out, yeah, you're right, yeah. The semi-finals.
Even, yeah.
Yeah, beat Djokovic in 2018, yeah.
Yeah, so they're the players that I'm looking at as possible dangers to Casper, but I'd still back Casper to come through it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. And yeah, like you say, Tsonga playing what could potentially be his last match. It will be, quite an occasion. You'd imagine. He's been a fantastic player. Obviously, he's going to have the French crowd right behind him. He's given them some great memories over the years, but I don't think I'll be surprised if he has the game really to knock out a player of Ruud's quality. I think at this stage, I mean, as you said, he's not played too badly in recent weeks, but just hasn't really got the wins. I think it's going to be a tough one for him, but hopefully he can at least put in a really strong performance. You never know what can happen, but I'm going to back Ruud certainly to come through to the fourth round. I think it's a really good draw, actually. I think Sonego, for a 32 seed, it's definitely not bad. I mean, he's dangerous. He can be a handful, but hasn't had the greatest season. Playing on what's probably his best surface, although he's had good results on all surfaces, actually. But I think Ruud will get through there. And on the other side, yeah, I'd agree with you. Hurkacz definitely not at his best on clay. Did have a couple of decent runs in Monte Carlo and Madrid, and then we saw him with an early exit in Rome. The Goffin, who's also in this section, and Goffin's actually the player I think I'm going to back probably to get through the fourth round and play Ruud. He's had a little bit of a revival, I would say, winning Marrakesh, decent run in Monte Carlo, match points against Nadal in Madrid, and then, as I mentioned, in Rome, decent win over Hurkacz, a little run there. So, yeah, I think Goffin on his favorite surface, we're starting to see a little bit of a recovery after a really tough period with injuries and struggles for form. So he could get through that. Tiafoe, as you mentioned, always dangerous, but yeah, I think Goffin to get through and probably lose to Ruud in the last 16. So moving on to the next section, who would potentially play Ruud, the winner of this. How do you see this one going? We've got the number 4 seed Stefanos Tsitsipas, who I think many would agree is the big winner of the men's draw, falling in the bottom half. He's had another great clay court season, and Shapovalov in there, the 14th seed, next highest. How do you see this one shaping up?
Yeah, as much as any top player will tell you that they relish a challenge, I think Tsitsipas will have been at home smiling when he saw that draw fall for him. I think, to be honest, Mercedes isn't an easy first round opponent. We've got to admit that. Young player whose best results have been on clay, went close against Djokovic last year at the French Open, but he just lost it completely, I feel, in that match against the eventual champion. Francisco Cerundolo, good clay court player, but you don't really see him springing too much of a surprise if he came up against Tsitsipas. I would have him coming through Dan Evans at least, and maybe into a third round. And then, I mean, in terms of fourth round opponents, I would probably lean towards Shapovalov. I don't think it is that simple though. Holger Rune in the first round, I think a French Open junior champion. He's also had a 250 main tour title on clay as well. So I don't think that's a simple first round, but I think Shapovalov's little bit of extra experience might see him through that. And then even his second round's not easy, because both Martinez and Laxinen, their best results have probably been on clay as well. But yeah, I'll have Tsitsipas to come through Shapovalov in a fourth round to face Casper Ruud in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and we're in agreement on this one. I think, yeah, as you said, Musetti first up's not an easy one. Probably one of the tougher unseeded players. Definitely, I mean, he's a great run at the French Open last year, and as you mentioned, his results on clay, it's definitely his best surface. But I still think Tsitsipas would come through there, and yeah, no real issues. I'd say up until the fourth round, and I would probably agree on Cerundolo potentially beating Evans in the first round, given Evans's record at the French, even though his results on clay have improved at the other tournaments. But yeah, as far as the top little section there, I think, yeah, that's definitely one of the first round matches to watch. Shapovalov against Holger Rune. That could be a really interesting one. Rune is he's got a big game. Could be a real handful, I think, on this surface, particularly. Winning that title in Munich. He's had another good run this week in Lyon, losing to Cam Norrie in the semi-finals today. So I think that's an interesting one, definitely. But I would go with Shapovalov to probably get through the fourth round. He did have a good run in Rome, reaching the quarterfinals. De Minaur could be a factor as well. His results on clay have really improved this year. He's definitely made big strides, I think, on the surface, and he's another one. He's had a solid run this week. But yeah, I'm going to go with Shapovalov probably comes through, but Tsitsipas to be too strong and make the quarterfinals. So we'll move on into the final quarter, seventh section, where Rublev is the highest seed, number 7 seed. But you've also got Jannik Sinner in there, the 11th seed. This is quite an interesting one. Who do you see coming through this one?
I probably see it going with the seeds up to the fourth round, but then I'd say I back Sinner a little bit ahead of Rublev, and I don't really have a clear idea why, because the records are very similar. I think both of them have a best result of a quarterfinal at the French Open. But I just feel like, I don't know, Sinner had a decent week recently in Rome, so maybe that's a factor here. Rublev, you don't know how much of a blow. It could work both ways, not being able to play Wimbledon for him. He'd probably want to show the best of himself at Grand Slam level, but then maybe there's a bit of lingering disappointment, a bit of pressure. So I'm gonna have Sinner to come through Rublev. There is other factors in that section. We know Basilashvili is a dangerous player on his day. Benoit Paire as well, but I think Paire's really past his best. And Garan's been far in the French Open before, but I still probably see Sinner coming through that against Rublev.
Yeah, and we agree again on this one. I think, yeah, I can't really see anything other than this Sinner Rublev fourth round clash there. As you mentioned, I think to start with Sinner, I think he's got a really good draw in the early rounds. I don't see any troubles there really. Third round, maybe Basilashvili, but an extremely inconsistent player, and I'll back Sinner just to win that. Cressy has had a really good start of the year, but I mean, haven't seen too much from him since on the clay. I don't think it's ideal for his brand of tennis. And Rublev, yeah, he did have an early exit at the French Open last year, losing to Struff, which was a pretty tough draw. But I think he's a pretty good bet to get through the first few rounds there. Like he's said, I can't really see anyone. Garin potentially, as you mentioned, got the fourth round last year. Tommy Paul's actually quite good on play, good on clay, a dangerous player. But I think Rublev, yeah, it looks pretty good to get the fourth round. And I'd also back Sinner on clay over Rublev. I just think on a slow clay court, he has a bit just the power he's got off both sides. They did play Monte Carlo. Sinner won that one pretty impressively in 3 sets. So yeah, I'm going to go with Sinner. Also, his last 2 years at the French Open, he made the quarterfinals in the fourth round. Both times he lost to Nadal. So, I mean, it's really taken a top performance to stop him. He could have potentially gone even deeper in both those draws. So I think he could be set for another deep run here, as we'll come on to the quarterfinals in a second. But first of all, we've got the final section to make up those quarterfinals. Possibly, well, for me, the most difficult one to call this, and that's obviously because Medvedev is there, as it proved last year. But yeah, I mean, this is a really difficult one for me. I mean, I had probably 3 players you could make a strong case for, but yeah, talk us through your thoughts on it first. I mean, what do you make of this section?
Yeah, I mean, apart from a Medvedev name in there, this really doesn't feel like a section of a Grand Slam. And no disrespect to the players in there. Marin Cilic is a legend and a slam winner. Gilles Simon, but the both players that have passed the best really. Medvedev, I don't think he's quite ready with his return from injury. I think it'll be good match practice from him, but I really don't know how to call it. He could come through to the fourth round at least, or he could fall in the first round. For me, I think it could swing either way for Medvedev at this tournament. I'd actually probably have Pablo Carreño Busta coming through, but I don't know against who, to be honest, just because he has got some pedigree on clay. He's a rare case for a Spaniard that hard courts are actually his best courts, but clay courts are far from his worst courts. I think he's been as far as the quarterfinals at Roland Garros before. I think he's done it more than once as well. So I'd probably back him to do it again.
Yeah, I think that's a fair call. He's definitely a player I consider to come through here. And I do have him in the fourth round. I would say, yeah, I think on clay, I'd give him the edge over Cilic. I mean, Vesely in there can be a tough player to beat, but yeah, I think Carreño Busta, as you say, I think twice in the quarterfinals here. I think he'll get through the fourth round at least, and then yeah, I had a tough call between Medvedev and Kecmanovic. Personally, I think I agree with Medvedev. The signs are that he's probably not ready for a run here. He's only played Geneva after his hernia surgery, and he lost pretty convincingly to Richard Gasquet, who we know is still capable of playing some fantastic tennis, but is definitely you'd say several years past his prime. So that maybe if that's an indicator of Medvedev's form, you wouldn't expect him to be in quarterfinal of a Grand Slam run form. But I mean, last year everyone kind of wrote him off, and he reached, I think, the quarterfinals pretty convincingly. So I'm reluctant, but I've gone with Kecmanovic. He's been a really informed player this year on hard courts and clay. Maybe his clay court season, European clay court season hasn't quite matched up to his Australian Open and Sunshine Double, but he did have a decent golden swing earlier in the year, and he's had some tough draws, I think, in Europe. So I'm going to go with Kecmanovic to have a big breakthrough here and make the quarterfinals. I would say Medvedev probably going through the third round, and I would go with Kecmanovic with the upset there. I think he's capable of his game is there on the clay. I think he just needs to take that next step mentally for the real big wins and big runs. But I think he's ready to do it. It's a decent opportunity. So yeah, I'll go with Kecmanovic maybe to come through Medvedev and then to beat Carreño Busta in the fourth round. But yeah, as I say, this was a difficult one, but I think he's capable. So we'll move on to we've gone through the draw, so we can move back into the discussion for quarterfinals onwards. The players we've said have got there. We'll go back to the top. Djokovic and Nadal, we've both gone for it. I mean, in a Grand Slam quarterfinal, it feels like a final. Even last year, having the semis was one thing, but we've got potentially, these two greats meeting in the quarters. It's such a fascinating one. Who've you going to win that one? We both think it's going to happen, so it could be decisive for the tournament.
Oh, I really, really don't know. it all depends on Nadal's fitness. Despite last year, I'd still have Nadal as a favourite against Djokovic at Roland Garros. It's really hard to call. I mean, Djokovic has just hit form at the right time. You know, initially struggled after the time he's had to spend out due to, vaccine laws in certain countries. But I don't know. I might just have to lean towards Djokovic just because there's no doubt over his fitness at least. But that's the only thing that swung it for me.
Yeah, I've also gone for Djokovic to be Nadal. I mean, it was such a tough one. I mean, I'm so reluctant to write off Nadal, even given the fitness issues, because I mean, I do think he'll get there, and if once he's there, I mean, it's just hard to see Nadal go out in the quarterfinals of Roland Garros. I mean, it has happened before against Djokovic in 2015, but that wasn't. It was a difficult period for Nadal, you'd say, and Djokovic absolutely in his prime, where I think you'd see the two players pretty close in level here. So such a tough one, but yeah, I would just go with Djokovic. The form he's in, the clay court season, and the matches he's managed to get under his belt. Compared to Nadal, still a bit of a question mark with the foot and just the lack of matches. It's so tough though. It's really hard to have Nadal going out in the quarters, but that's the way the draw's gone. So I've had to go with Djokovic. And moving into your second quarter final, I believe you went with Carlos Alcaraz to play Alejandro Davidovich Fokina, who he had beaten Alexander Zverev. How do you see that one going?
Yeah, I mean, three out of four Spaniards in this quarterfinal. On this half of the draw I've gone with, and then one on the other. So I'm expecting a big Spanish presence. And for a guaranteed Spaniard in the semi-final, I'm gonna go with Carlos Alcaraz. Once again, you just can't look past his results recently. He has been in incredible form, and you know, it's about time we saw him go that one step further.
Yeah, I'd agree. I've got the same man to win, but in a different matchup against Zverev. But yeah, I'd agree. I just think, you know, such a strong contender for the title after what he's done in Barcelona and Madrid, and also in Indian Wells in Miami on the different service. Just the fantastic run he's on, and having that dominant win against Zverev in the Madrid final could play a role here if they do meet. So yeah, I would back Alcaraz to win that one. Not necessarily easily. I mean, Zverev has had a really, you know, as we've talked about, a solid clay court season. Well, a really good clay court season in terms of just the results. His level, though, I would say is not quite there to beat Alcaraz right now. So yeah, I'd go with Alcaraz to come through and play Djokovic in the semis. So we'll move into the bottom half. I think we both had a Stefanos Tsitsipas, Casper Ruud quarterfinal. Then that third quarter, what do you see happening there?
I back in Tsitsipas to win. You know, he's been in the French Open final before. Last year, as it turns out, is more experienced than Ruud, especially in terms of the later stages of Grand Slam tournaments. So that's what swung it for me. I feel like Ruud's got the game to test anyone on clay on his day, but we haven't seen it too much from him this year. We haven't tended to see it in the bigger tournaments. So once again, back just that extra bit of experience for Tsitsipas wins it.
Yeah, and I'd also agree with Tsitsipas to come through then. I'd say probably not an easy one to call, given Ruud does seem to have hit form at the right time with his semi-final in Rome, and he's made the final in Geneva as we speak, which I think he's going to win. He's going to play João Sousa in the final. With no disrespect, I think he's going to win that and defend his title. So he'll certainly be confident coming in terms of wins, possibly a potential fatigue factor, but I don't think he's had too many long matches. So yeah, it could be an interesting one there between two, you know, great clay court players, but I just think Tsitsipas is that little bit greater, you'd say, and just that little bit more game reaching the final last year. Yeah, big match experience. I would have to go with Tsitsipas to beat Ruud, but it would be a good run for Ruud to get his first Grand Slam quarterfinal, as it would be. So to move into the bottom quarter, where we had we both had Jannik Sinner, but I believe you had Pablo Carreño Busta to play him. How do you see that one going?
Sinner into the semi-final. You know, Pablo Carreño Busta to top out on clay at the quarterfinal yet again. Like I said, I think as mentioned last time, it's Sinner's been getting good results fairly consistently. Maybe have ups and downs, times out of form, times in form, but you know, a couple of years now that Jannik Sinner's been breaking through, and it's ready to see him in the later stages of a a Grand Slam tournament, and I feel like he could do it at this year's Roland Garros.
Yeah, I agree. So we've got the same 4 semi-finalists. I've also got Sinner to win, but against Miomir Kekmanovic, which I think would be a really interesting match. It'd be a fantastic occasion for both those players to get at that stage. But yeah, I agree. I think it could be Sinner's time to reach a Grand Slam semi-finals, being in a couple of quarterfinals, the Australian Open earlier this year, the French Open 2020, and I think this is a good opportunity for him in terms of the section. He doesn't have to beat a Tsitsipas, Alcaraz, Nadal, Djokovic, and that's not to say Kekmanovic, who I've got again there, isn't a great player. I would have him obviously coming through Medvedev and possibly Krenia Busta, but I think I'll just give Sinner the edge there on clay. Obviously, as I said, be his third quarterfinal at this level. It'd be Kekmanovic's first, so I think, and just in terms of the game, I'm backing Sinner to get through then and meet Tsitsipas, which we'll come on to in a second. Could be a really interesting one, but we'll go back to the top half where we've both got a Djokovic Alcaraz semi-final. Extremely interesting this one. I mean, how do you see this one going? Played an absolute epic in Madrid in the semi-finals just a couple of weeks ago.
I mean, it's a weird one here because there's a part of my mind saying Alcaraz. You'd have to say he's had the better 2022 so far. A recent big win over Djokovic. But once again, it's just that slam experience. And we know that Djokovic is an absolute monster when it comes to difficult moments. And he's also really good at peaking at the right time. He may take an uncharacteristic win in a Masters tournament. I mean, it's not that it was an uncharacteristic win against Alcaraz. It was a high quality match and Alcaraz came out on top in it, but it's just that Djokovic tendency to turn up when it matters most, and that's what's making me lean towards Djokovic. But on the tennis that I've seen from both of them recently, I'd still probably go Alcaraz. But Djokovic is in my head. He's an absolute monster when it comes to these situations, and he's swayed my decision because of that.
Absolutely, I think that is a really interesting point. I mean, about the tennis, I mean, for me, so close between the two of them, as you said. Even giving Alcaraz the slight edge, I wouldn't disagree really either way. It is so close. I mean, that match in Madrid was just incredible, as I mentioned. I mean, really could have gone either way, but it just fantastic level. If we see anything like that, it would be an absolute classic. So really, so difficult, because I do think Alcaraz has got the mentality. I mean, we've seen him, his record in finals, hasn't lost a set yet. Doing it at Masters 1000 level, but Grand Slam is another step. I mean, this would be uncharted territory from in terms of a semi-final. Playing Djokovic, as you mentioned, I just can't quite go against Djokovic in a Slam semi-final. You'd think you'd be buoyed off the back of a Nadal win in the previous round, as we've both predicted, although it can sometimes be tough coming. The following match after beating Nadal at Roland Garros can be tough. So last year against Tsitsipas in the final, he didn't have a good start, but he pulled it out in the end. So I mean, those two as back-to-back matches in a row will be extremely tough, but I've got him just to edge it and to level that head-to-head, which could be a fantastic little rivalry for a couple of years. So, and we'll move on to the second semi-final we've both gone with, Stefanos Tsitsipas against Jannik Sinner. It could be a really interesting one as well. Again, it's been a rivalry. This could be a great rivalry for the next 5-10 years. Who do you see winning that one?
Yeah, well, like so, I feel like we'll see a lot more of these two playing against each other, especially on clay, because they'll both make late stages on clay quite often in the years to come. Once again, it's experience that's swinging it for me. I feel like I've mentioned it a lot in this podcast, but Tsitsipas has been here before, and he probably does have a little bit of an edge on Sinner in terms of his game at the moment, although it's not really that close. I feel like Tsitsipas's backhand, as beautiful as it can be, it can let him down sometimes, whereas Sinner, he's got fairly decent consistency and power off both wings. So there's not a massive gap in the tennis, but I would still give Tsitsipas an edge in the tennis. And then on top of the little edge I'd give him in the tennis, was a big edge in terms of being here before. So that's what's made me select Stefanos Tsitsipas to come up against Djokovic in the French Open final for the second year in a row.
Yeah, and I've also done the same. And I would agree with what you're saying, that the edge in experience and tennis. I mean, not too. I agree. I think Sinner does have some of the tools to hurt Tsitsipas. So you mentioned that, the backhand can be the slight weakness, if anything, in Tsitsipas's game, but it is harder to get at it on a clay court. It really, it does take an elite player still to exploit it. How good he is on clay, getting his forehand into play, even out of the backhand corner. But they did play a good match in Rome. Well, certainly the first set was really competitive, almost an hour and a half. Tsitsipas edged that one. Sinner seemed to fade a little bit physically. I would give Tsitsipas probably a physical edge as well, like extremely strong. I think one of the best athletes. Sinner, I think, still a little bit of a way to go in that department. We've seen a few physical issues holding back this year. He seems to be improving on it, but I think in this stage of Islam, I would go Tsitsipas at the French Open. He's been fantastic at this tournament the last 2 years. So I've also gone for a repeat of last year's final and the Rome final we just had last week. So it's becoming quite a familiar match, this one. But Djokovic, Tsitsipas in the final. What do you see happening this time?
I really don't know. I really, really don't know. I mean, the way the final in, that'd make me lean towards Djokovic, just because it really did come apart for Tsitsipas. But we've seen Tsitsipas take Djokovic all the way before, especially on a clay court, and even in the Roland Garros final, being 2 sets up last year. So it's a difficult one to call, and I might just give it to him, partly because I'd like to see someone different win a slam. It'd be a shame when we've got what seems like such an open French Open, and we've said it's a really open draw this year, and then predict Djokovic to win. But I just that'd feel like we've gone back on everything, and maybe it is time for Tsitsipas. The draw's really opened up for him. He should be fresher. He should have had the easier matches coming into it. Djokovic possibly comes into the final on the back of playing Nadal and Alcaraz consecutively. That's going to be really difficult. Even if it comes from both straight sets, in the end, they're not going to be easy straight sets victory by any sense of the imagination. So maybe that'll take it out of him, and maybe Stefanos will be ready to capitalise.
Oh, it's a big call, but I agree with that point. It is a really interesting one about the matches Djokovic is going to have to come through compared to Tsitsipas. Not that Tsitsipas would be easy, but I mean, you're comparing potentially beating Nadal and Alcaraz back to back 4 or 5 sets. You'd think both of them most likely, unless, I mean, not to put anything past Djokovic, but I mean, it would take some performance to win both those matches without expending quite a lot physically. I mean, we did see even his heroics last year to win the title, what it took to be Nadal in a brutal, even 4 sets. It was well over 4 hours. Then Tsitsipas in the final 4 hours from 2 sets down. So and they were 2 back-to-back, and he's gonna have to do that. Then be Tsitsipas in the final. It's a really difficult one. I agree. If it's a fantastic opportunity for Tsitsipas, I do think he's probably going to be the fresher in the final. But I'm just going to go with Djokovic in a repeat result. It is such a tough one, though. I mean, but I can't overlook the clay head-to-head, which I think is 5-0 in Djokovic's favor. But as he did mention, though, the 2 matches at Roland Garros, both 5-setters. So it's really, I don't think it'll be easy. Again, it could be another 5-setter, but I'm just going to go with Djokovic, which I mean would be. Has there ever been? I don't know if there would have ever been a greater quarterfinal, semi-final, and final stretch to win a Grand Slam. Which it does make me not that, but if anyone's going to pull it off, it could well be Djokovic. So it could be another fantastic final. But it's interesting. We had a lot of the same predictions there, but in the end, we've got a bit of a different one in the final. So it's going to be interesting to see whether that happens. But I'm very much looking forward to this tournament. It's been great to look ahead to the men's draw and make our predictions. And we'll be back soon with a draw preview of the women's singles event, where we'll make our predictions for that one. So thanks everyone for watching. Let us know what you thought of the predictions in the comments, and if you want, let us know if you disagree. But thanks very much for listening, everyone, and we'll see you again soon.